Hello, my name is Hattie Salzman, and this is Tourism Geographies. And for my final, I chose wildlife tourism, and I decided to focus on the good, the bad, or if there is a little bit of both. So, for my literature review, I chose a book about wildlife tourism, and it's from the Sustainable Wildlife Tourism Convention. And that really was just a bunch of different review of reports on wildlife tourism visitor numbers, the tourism markets, satisfaction, the economics of wildlife tourism, and the different like non-human versus human different things going on in the world. Um, it showed how others have defined and measured their key concepts that I include in my report. Monetary benefits from wildlife usually provide an important incentive for government interventions in conserving the wildlife because the overall benefits from the wildlife tourism are very positive in most places, even though these benefits may not be accurate to the local areas and communities where the people live and where the wildlife lives. And then a quick example that was in the article was, or the book was, sea turtles that and how they were an asset in the Australian coast. And it talked about threats to their populations globally and generally, aspects of the problems associated with sustainability of non-consumptive wildlife tourism. And that was again focused around sea turtle based tourism. So, the purpose of my report, I really focused on animals live within global tourism, and I talked about different examples with that. And I said, it is obviously a fact that tourists love animals, and their intention is not to hurt them, but really enjoy them. But the reality is that many of these tourists, they don't really see the afterthought of when the ride is over or your picture was taken and you can now go pay for it and move on. And really, I just want to quick define what it is. And honestly, that's like trips to destinations with the main purpose of visiting, being to observe the local fauna and amplify wildlife tourism, like other niche markets such as bird watching and exploration of the marine life. And a lot of this also happens when we just go to the local zoos around us. Um, so, yeah. I included some examples that I'll talk about in the later slides. And then I also included content analysis within this because I felt it was very prevalent with the pictures that I used. And when I say entrepreneurial, I really talk about how when we plan our own trips, it's ourselves planning it for ourselves purpose. So I just kind of related that a lot within the article and almost like a business. We pay for a trip that we know we want to do. We pay for different explorations, different tourism packages, and I go more into depth, obviously, in my report about that. Content analysis, I talked about a little bit about my own life for a little bit, and I kept relating everything back to the research question of if everything was bad or if there was some good. When I talk about a luxury feeling, I talk about, when people see posts on social media, they want that luxury feeling. And like I said, the examples are on this next slide. Here are the pictures that I used in my report with the elephants. And then I also had some comments on the side that I put in there that I thought were very prevalent to what I was talking about. And those comments were actually in each of these photos. So I went through all those comments to see what people said. And then finally, just some recommendations that I thought could be good is obviously, find greener trips when looking and planning the next trip for either your tourist or your tourism planner. Make tours greener and read reviews, do some research on things. Obviously, we cannot change this problem overnight, and not all wildlife tourism is bad, but there are some good ones, and it's about finding those and reading positive reviews, doing a little research on what happens to these animals that you might interact with. Um, and humane treatment, obviously, the experiences between visitor and wildlife comprise of the core is what people experience, and it's a result of the interaction of the elements relating to wildlife tourism. So in a sense, going back to my entrepreneurial point, individuals make actions of a collective difference, which in turn signals the market that consumers support ethical wildlife. So just to end real quick, when tourists decide that they want humane treatment of animals, the wildlife tourism market will and can change for the better. But I think it's time we start with a little bit of research of our own. So thank you, and I hope you all have a good rest of your semester. Those are my sources.